Hey everybody, StewSmith here, along with my good friend Patrick Bonus up there in Connecticut, and we're going to do a tactical fitness report on information, right? And this is information that if you are wanting to do something, with a career, for something, a school, anything, that requires some effort and preparation, you should be well informed. And unfortunately, both Patrick and I see many people who show up to a PST. They may be already in the delayed entry program, and they have never finished a 500-yard swim before in their life, right? And they don't pass, they do not finish. This is a process that occurs, all the time. And I'm shocked, to be honest with you, that, with all the information out there in the Google machine, that people can't find how to swim the combat swimmer stroke, right, on their own, because you really do have to crush this thing, in order to get to, your selection program. And we'll speak specifically on buds today, because the other day, Patrick does a lot of the Heroes of Tomorrow training with me up in Connecticut, and he noticed is the pool that you swim in, right?
Yeah.
That people were doing a PST. And what did you see there?
Well, they come often, and I've got to know the guys, and they're part. They're connected directly to the Department of the Navy, so these guys are active duty and things like that, and they
Right.
bring individuals for their
scout team, the
Yep.
StewSmith scout team.
Yep, and they had a hodgepodge the other day, and because I have guys that are way the guys and girls that I work with are way before that step.
Mm-hmm.
People see me around the pool, and because of Heroes Tomorrow, the Y has been gracious and said they can work out for free if they're with me. And so people, my friends around the pool, the lifeguards, know that I train individuals for tactical careers. Had a state trooper in there last week who's going diver, and so they start asking me, and I'm like, I have nothing to do with this. This isn't a training period right now. This is their
It's the beginning of their selection. These first PSTs, you need to consider this is the first step of you moving forward,
mm-hmm.
In this
and there's
pipeline.
And they're on the clock, and there's a clipboard out. This is official. This is, this isn't me, giving you technique tips or, encouraging words to grind through, the 10 rounds or the 20 rounds or whatever we're doing, or you got to shave this time off, or, you get off your knees or whatever it is, this is the situation. And the lifeguards actually moved their position to a different zone because they were worried about these kids.
Wow. So they were worried that these guys who are trying to be SEALs, right, or Spec or divers, could not complete a 500-yard swim to the point of where they may drown.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. They were recognizing that issue to the point where they changed their zone coverage. So, so it was a situation where, the lifeguards had to, be, and I'm thinking to myself that is, that's, a little bit, I said to them, I was like, they can stand up.
Right.
It's not a deep pool, but
right.
that one of the kids on like third lap started bouncing off the bottom.
Wow.
Pushing his feet off the bottom. So it was one of those things, and I'm not being critical, but again, like I said, this is not a training time. This was, their official.
Official PST. I tell people all the time, they need to treat this PST like a job interview.
Yeah.
Right?
And yeah.
And that's why I recommend all the time that train hard before you go talk to a recruiter, be able to crush that PST, take it your first time. And here's what happens. You will go into one of two groups. You're going to be in the failure group. You're going to be in the passing group, right? And within that passing group, you have scores good enough to go into the draft to whether or not you're going to be going to buds, get your contract, and have a date to go to boot camp. I mean, that is how the process works. It doesn't do very well of every week after week after week just failing this PST, and then eventually if you're lucky, you may pass the PST to the standards that they expect. But what did you do during that 6, 8, 9 months of being in the delayed entry program? You just got good at taking the PST. You didn't get good at anything else that's going to help you get through buds. You got 2 buds. Hey, great. Good job. Most people get 2 buds. 25% will get through buds, right? Because they learned how to also do 4-mile timed runs fast. They also managed to learn how to swim 2 miles, with fins fast, because you're going to do those 2 events every week for 26 weeks. I mean, just, that's a hard challenge. You got to be good at those events.
Yeah. Well, and it speaks to like one of my trainees, they don't go to, and I try to encourage this, and it's from talking to you. It's from, understanding my own experience. When I took my police PST, I knew that I was going to, and it wasn't the chips, it was held by their own specific department, and I trained as hard as I could. I trained harder than what my PST would be.
Exactly. Exceeding the standard is the standard.
Yep. And I
remember that.
And I oftentimes will say, I think, because there's very little that I know. I will say this. I know how to train for a PST.
Oh, sure.
I know that a PST actually should, and I've said it before, should be this shouldn't even be a workout. You should be wanting to do more that day if you're really training for a tactical
Oh, absolutely.
career.
Yeah. And once you get really good at it, it shouldn't affect your workout schedule. There's no reason to taper 3 days and take a day off and then do your PST. Maybe on your first time, when you're kind of anxious and you're fighting a lot of anxiety and stuff. I kind of get that. But, eventually you should be able to pass this PST like you pass a drug test. They're going to wake you up in the morning and say, hey, time to pee in a cup. You got to pee in a cup, just a surprise random drug test. You should be able to pass a surprise random PST the same way.
There's no way. Well, and that's what, going back to like, I kind of went off and said, I know this. I said to my trainee, I said, you have to crush this PST. So he goes and he does it. Now you have some time before you're going to ship out.
Yes.
You have not been swimming with fins. When you go to the PJ program, they're going to have you in these jet rocket fins that are going to be stiff. Your ankles and calves need to get used to it. So what it is the PST now, you never get too far away from your PST in case they want to do it in basic
maintain
or, you maintain it, but I said, you also have to be ready for your fins and all that sort of stuff. But, again, to the point of you and, what I've said is that these kids have guys and girls have an amazing opportunity with all the information. Like you've said, Google, the reference learning, the availability that you are. The state trooper that I trained last week was so impressed with how quickly you responded to his question. He had a question. It wasn't really a reference question. There's a lot of unknowns with him doing state diver, for the state police.
Sure.
But what he's doing is again, he's 30 years old. He's been in, I think the reserves. I think, he's been 5 or 6 years. I mean, he has this body of work of, I need to chase down every question, every problem, every potential issue, where I'm weak, where I need to improve. He's chasing everything down. And the kids that I saw yesterday, and it's not judgment, they should not be wearing their Navy shorts with their Navy bag. They should not have even they shouldn't have talked to the recruiter yet, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they're not ready for what they're going into at this point. And again, you get to that level, if they don't have the proper reinforcement, with a swim instructor or whatever. And, I told Zach when he was up at Holy Cross, I worked with him when I could, but then he went off to Holy Cross, and I said, go to the pool and find a kid, male, female, that's a swimmer. They'll help you. Yeah. They're going to give you techniques. They're going to give you stream.
Or just watch them.
Yeah.
That's how I got to be a better swimmer, is just watching people who were much better swimmers.
Well, and the best athletes, I think, are good mimics.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That is helpful. I mean, there's some athletic ability to swimming, there's some coordination, but really it comes down to practice. I have had many people who were non-athletes crush swimming tests just because they practiced.
Yeah. And I'm not I was not a collegiate high school swimmer at all, at all. And I've had some swimmers that are pretty good swimmers ask where I swam, and that's very flattering to me. And
Yeah, yeah.
I said nowhere, you know.
Yeah, well,
But again,
same thing.
and I think that's probably, they say that in my first lap. But you know, going back to the initiative is that, you know, I really want people who watch this to know that I've done PSTs. I've done official PSTs,
Oh, sure.
and
Countless.
there has to be a level of energy that goes in, and asking the questions and asking people to observe you prior, looking at the things and looking at, okay, swim a 500 as fast as you can, do push-ups, get right on the deck with no rest in between, do push-ups fast, run a mile and a half as fast as you can, max your pull-ups with wet hands,
Yeah.
do fat bars, do narrow bars, do bars with tapes, because you're going to have variables in your PSTs that you can't control.
Absolutely.
You could run, like one of my trainees got moved off a track into a gym and ran around a basketball court like 37 times.
Oof.
Right. So there's a psychological thing when that happens.
That's
So
brutal.
be ready for the variables.
Yeah.
You know, ask as many questions to guys and girls who've done it. So, well, what kind of pool? Because yesterday, I don't know if this had anything to do with it. I mean, I don't think it did, but we had long course set up yesterday.
Okay. Yeah. 50 meters swim turnaround suck. They
Well,
make you a little slower.
and you
But
don't.
you got to know that. You
That's
don't know that unless you practice.
Exactly. And that's one of those variables that, okay, I'm going to show up and I'm not going to get as many kicks off the wall, streamline double arm pull, where I can essentially cut the pool in half.
Right.
It's longer continual swim.
Yep.
So those variables that are going to be thrown in your PSTs and the pull-up bars there, they have no little diamond cuts in them. They have no tape. They're
No
smooth.
tape. Yeah.
So make sure
bring some tape with you too, so you can tape the bars. You know, that's a real big help. You know, there's a lot of variables they're going to throw at you. Just the instructors alone will throw out, okay, you can't wear goggles. You know, this
Right.
PST. Some days you can. You can't. I've seen some where you got to stay on you got to be facing the instructor the entire swim. So that means every length you have to change sides of your combat swimmer stroke. So you need to learn both sides. What's another one? I've seen some where you can't do double arm pulls. Just got to go right into the stroke. I mean, they're just throwing curveballs at people just to see how you handle it. You know?
Yeah. And one of my guys, I think it was like his second PST or something. He was already in, and he had already, been, shipped out, whatever. And they
Right.
give him PST, and he did like 10 pull-ups. They were doing grinders. And so the instructor said, "You fail." And he was like, he didn't say this. He was thinking, why, he's like, and then the instructor, after he's checking his boxes, said, "You did 10 pull-ups and I wanted you to do 11. And, it was just that instructor, that's what he wanted. And that was that variable for that instructor. Like you said, sometimes they won't let you do a double arm pull. Sometimes you have to wear a mask, not goggles. Sometimes you can't wear anything. So, there are situations that are going to arise. And, going to, as a health educator, when we do modeling and there's an issue within the population, we use a model called the precede-proced model.
Precede-proced. Okay. What is that? That sounds kind of like take the initiative and do it.
Exactly. And the precede goes to, and the reason why I brought it up is because you said when we were talking, on the phone yesterday, is like they need to take more initiative. They need to go and research and find and answer questions. And the precede is you're preceding everything. You're directing your attention to the outcomes, but you're doing everything to precede that. So you're looking at any potential problems that are going to come into play. You're not necessarily looking at those problems as roadblocks, as you're looking to find the solution.
Yeah, that's a good point, because here's what happens whenever you are going into a job that requires aquatic training, right? So whether you're a diver, SEAL, SWIC, EOD, everything that, is underwater, is that I guarantee you another variable that will occur is treading water, right? You will tread water either with fins, without fins, with no hands, with hands, right? And you need to also get good at that. Your comfortability in the water is critical if you want to do these jobs. And you can't just show up on day one to a PST having never swum before. I have seen guys who come to me who are already in the delayed entry program, who their first time getting across a swimming pool was with me. And they're already in. Now, I've also seen guys whose first time getting across a swimming pool was with me, but they worked out with us for about a year, then went delayed entry program, then went to buds, crushed it. Now they're SEALs, right? So it can happen. I mean, just because you can't swim now doesn't mean you can't swim later, but you might need to give yourself a little more time in order to do that. That's all I'm saying. Be patient. Don't sign up just because you turn 18. Don't sign up just because somebody says, hey, you should be a SEAL. And they plant that idea in your head and you've never done any research to figure out what is part of precede-proced. Exactly right. Nice work.
Yeah. And, to the point of some of the trainees that I've worked with, I've done, nothing that I've done has got them to pass their PSTs or succeed in the careers that they've taken. But that some of the individuals that I've worked with me 2 years before they went to the recruiter, before they really signed up or got in. And so that 2 years that they put in prior, working jobs, working out, sometimes going more on the track of deadlifting and bench pressing and, anything like that, periodization. Sure. Yep. But there was 2 years of working these things out, going on night hikes, doing open water swims. Those are not going to get you ready for the PST, but they're going to teach you how to adjust to different variables, to things that you're going to have to do. And they were trying, and the kids that I've seen succeed, the young men, excuse me, because they're not kids.
Yeah,
but
I call them kids too. They're kids to me.
When you start getting gray hair, they're all kids, and these kids have this real desire, this real thirst for learning, and they're preceding because they have a desired outcome. They're preceding everything to get to that desired outcome. They're checking off all the boxes. They're looking at, okay, well, dark water at night, boats on heads, getting the bald patch, while we're carrying the boat on the head for the 2 miles.
Sure.
And even if that's one time, it's giving them that experience that they know that they can do it, or it also highlights that potential problem. What is the solution? Well, better practice, more work, more time, more energy, more effort. And getting to the PST there, I feel there should almost be an anxiousness to check those boxes, check, go to MEPS, check the box, get your ASVAB, check, do your PST, check. Now get to those situations, working with fins, getting your ankles ready, doing sand runs, doing all the other things that are going to happen after you've done your PST, and all the while never really getting too far away from that PST.
That's a great point, because here's what happens when you show up on day one and you take your first PST. One, you're going to be shocked by how many people don't pass the PST, don't finish the PST, and you go in there and crush it. Guess who the recruiter and the mentor is going to be talking to first? Guess who they call because they say, hey, are you ready to go? Because we got a date for you right now. I mean, they will call you. If you're in the failing group, good luck trying to get in touch with a recruiter. They may call you back, a week later, right? It's a big difference. You set yourself up for success or failure by your first PST.
Yeah. And I think that training for a PST, and in fairness, that in training for a PST, you can do so much that is directly connected to a PST, depending where you are, that you should be able to, in a good, effective training period, get to a point with all your, and I designed a push-up program for Drew, because, your 200 push-ups a day or whatever you taper. Yeah. You guys start to hate swimming, guys and girls, because the continual laps. And one way to change that too, and never get too far away from your PST, is a 50 sprint, 100 sprint with 20 push-ups, right?
Oh yeah. PT, swim PT is great for people like me with ADD. Swimming's boring. I mean, it's just all it is. You got to play with stroke counts. You got to add some PT, do something in there just to, it's difficult to just look at that black line all day. So
thinking that, and other people will do swim one day, they'll run the other day, they'll do cows the other day, or lifting or whatever it is. And that to me is what you have to really work away from. You have to be able to swim, run,
all
cows
together.
Boom, 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 boom.
One day.
And
boom, boom, boom. Same hour.
Yeah.
Get it done.
And last week when I was working with that guy with his technique, I planned to work out after, and and he texted me, and he said, thanks for the tips on the technique, but also it's good to have a gut check every once in a while, because he wasn't, whether it was his schedule, his time, his availability, that all could be, but we did a swim, push, pull, sit, and then we ran mile intervals. And so we did it all, and we did all of it, which was more. We did, I think, 1,000 yards, 100 pull-ups, 300 sit-ups, 300 push-ups, and three mile intervals. So it was all more than a PST.
Yeah, that's great. And that's a great way to prepare for a PST, break it down. In fact, I have something I'm going to share with you guys. I'm going to share my screen right now. You just gave me a great idea. So there's a couple of web pages that you should definitely know, right? You should know this website. All right. This website is called SealSwick.com, right? If you want to be a Navy SEAL, you want to be a SWIC, you click the button and look at all this information, right? The PST, you got a little calculator to see if you pass or fail it or not. You should be taking this on your own, right? Long before, right? And then, so many other things from, the PSC standards. You got videos, you got, if you become an officer, you want to become enlisted, you got frequently asked questions. You got to know this site, because there's some administrative things here that are very important to you to understand the recruiting process, right? Because there are general requirements, there's medical and vision, and there's application steps if you're active duty, there's different application steps if you're civilian. There's a lot to consume here, and this is all up-to-date information. I've written a lot about this, but to be honest with you, I've written about 1,000 articles. For me to update all of them, all at once is sometimes pretty challenging, right? So now let me just show you. This is my page here. This is StewSmith.com. And if you click the free workouts link right here, you will find a page where you got a cool little video about my Heroes of Tomorrow program. And this is our schedule here in Severna Park. But this is a list of names that you can go to, right, in different states. I don't have every state covered, and not everybody's a Navy SEAL. I got a couple of Navy SEALs that help out. Some people that are just good swim coaches out in California. Got Connecticut. This is where Patrick is, South Kent, Brookfield area. This is his contact info. Set up a schedule. This is in Florida, outside of Pensacola. Former SEAL, does some great swim workouts up there. Awesome. There's a whole bunch of others. Got some former Navy, police officers, SWAT team guys, just good trainers that just want to help. And they donate their time to help you, right? We're not trying to, compete with any local SEAL mentors in the area. We're just helping you out, because SEAL mentors' job is to just test you, right? They're going to PST you. If you get a good workout with them, that's great. But it doesn't happen all the time in every recruiting district, right? So here's another one for you. This is my StewSmith Fitness. So I got two websites, StewSmith.com and StewSmith Fitness. StewSmith Fitness has a lot of my most recent articles on here, and this one is really important. SEAL SWIC, EOD Diver, PST Clinic is real, like what Patrick just explained, how he breaks up the PST into different events. I do the same thing. I break up the PST into 22 different events. So it's, instead of a 500-yard swim, it's a 10 500-yard or 50-yard intervals, right? I'd like to see where your pace is on each one of those intervals, right? Push-up event, just crank them out. You got 2 minutes to do them, get them done. Sit-ups is a pacing event. People screw up their sit-ups because they start off way too fast. It's 4 30-second pacing events. Where are you in the first 30 seconds? If you're at 35 in the first 30 seconds, but you don't get 70 in 2 minutes, what's that tell you? Start off way too fast. I've had people fail one day and get, with 60, one day, and then they get 80 the next day just because they learn how to pace themselves, right? So between 20 and 25, every 30 seconds, it gets you 80 to 100. Just takes a little bit of practice. Pull up same way, max event, and then, 1.5 miles, 6 quarter-mile intervals. Know your pace. What is your pace on that first one? Should be, you might negative split the last few if you got a little juice in you, but most people don't. But there's a whole lot of information here. And what I did is I took 4 people, took them through the PST and talked to, person A, B, C, and D, and say, here's what happened with person A, student B, C, D. They either started off too fast, they lost their pace, they started losing, efficiency, same with some tips, right? And then we got the push-ups, same for push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, this is where they were on their pull-up scores. Some did better, some didn't do so well. They're starting to burn out. Same on the 1.5 miles. You can see where these paces start off. Some people finished with a 9:30, sub 9, and then one guy finished with a 10:40, right? But he started off really fast, right? And just started losing it, right? So he just lost his pace. So there's a lot to this test that you have to practice in order to create a good strategy to, passing it. So that is 2 websites that I would recommend. StewSmith.com. And then I have a ton of articles over there too, by the way. In fact, let me do this. One more thing, Patrick. Let me share one more video, website. These are some of the new articles that I created right here. So if you go to StewSmithFitness.com and click the articles link, once again, all free information. Pacing skills for better PST scores. This is strategy 101. Just wrote that this month. Do you want a better PST score? Just wrote that this month. A lot of people screw up certain events. Hey, I want to join the SEAL program when I graduate. I say, stop right there. Read this first. Right? Don't go enlist immediately. Here's some podcasts that I do, to through and after podcasts. I'm interviewing, Spec Ops guys, running faster, tips. And there's 68 pages of this, and each page has, quitting or not quitting. What's good enough? This is a good one. What's good enough, strength wise, right? In the PST, what's good enough in Spec Ops? So, you go in here and you say, well, here's what's good enough. Here's the optimal scores. You should be in this zone, depending on what special ops you want to be, right? If you're faster than that, great. If you're not, you got a little work to do. So it kind of takes out the guessing game when it comes to where should I be, and you might not even realize you have a weakness until you see it on paper. You're running a 10:45 1.5 miles, and you think that's pretty good because you're beating everybody in your group. But guess what? Most everybody's running at 9, sub 9.
Yeah. And the thing is with that, you don't, and I don't ever want to instill mediocrity.
Yes.
But you have to be able to be in, you can't just be, a 6-minute 500 swimmer. And, and so one of my trainees who was a collegiate swimmer could swim probably a sub 5 because he did freestyle. He could probably swim a sub 5.
Doesn't even need to be in the pool working out.
But
work on everything else.
But knew that if he did that in his PST, it would take some work, and that he would probably be gassed for his push and his pull. And he did not strive for mediocrity, but he knew his pace so well that he was then able to max his push, max his pull, max his sit, and get a very, very good run. And so, I think that, in talking about it, all of the links that you just shared are the second that thought says, I want to be a diver, I want to be EOD, I want to be SWIC, I want to be a PJ. I want anything with a water qualification, for example, or anything. Those articles, those links, your podcasts, your live videos, all of those are things that you should start watching and answering questions to yourself, making sure that you're checking every box. And, just like you showed, there's so much opportunity for you to get that information before you get to an official PST. You don't, and honestly, I've heard this, that there's kids who just wake up and decide they want to take their official PST that day. And
it happens.
That's a little, yeah.
Unfortunately, I blame two people. I blame the young person who didn't take enough time and initiative to research a career choice. If you were doing anything else, you might do a little more research on, what job you're actually considering. Do you think you might like this job, right? Where you're going to work in an office, or you're going to drive a truck, or whatever, the job is. These things are things that you should do some research and see if you even, want to do it, right? Versus just signing up and going to do it and then see what happens, right? Because you just don't have time to get in that kind of shape. And unfortunately, like I said, I blame the kid mainly because they don't understand what in shape is for these type of professions, right? They think, hey, I played high school football, I'm in good shape, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. You are in good shape, but you're not in great shape, and you got to be in great shape, and you got to be good at everything. You might be good at powerlifting, but you're not good at muscle stamina for high rep calisthenics or running anything longer than 100 meters, right? You got to find your weaknesses. So you got to be training to do that, throughout the year. And then I blame the recruiter a little bit, mainly just because, this is a recruiting tool, and the recruiters definitely know that, people want to be SEALs, right? Or EOD or diver, right? And they'll sign you up for it. I mean, in fairness, they're not at a gym to train you to see if you're ready or not. They're taking your word for it that, oh yeah, I can pass that. I've been doing this forever, right? And you may not have done anything, right? Maybe you have, but your performance is going to be tested really quickly, after you sign that dotted line. And do you want to be lying to the recruiter, right? You're just going to be stuck in delayed entry program trying to pass PSTs if that's the case. Otherwise, you crush that thing. The recruiter's like, he's serious. He's ready to go. Let's get serious with him and get him out of here, and get him shipped. That's how it works.
Yeah. I think that, like I said prior, that there's the anxiety on some levels with the PST is to get so prepared for it that you want it over with, not in a negative way, but so you can move on to the other training you need to do, the other things that you need. The PST, a little bit of the anxious should be like, you want to get this done. You're so ready for it.
Yeah.
That feeling of, and that feeling of like, that confidence level, but not overconfidence. And I also really want to say that, I've always been of the mind, because my father always taught me that if anybody asks you a question, you don't have the answer. You don't reply to them, I don't know. You say, I don't know, but I will do my best to find the answer for you.
Yeah. In fact, one of the 5 basic responses when you go to the Naval Academy is yes, sir, no, sir, aye, sir, and I'll find out, sir, and the correct answer. You got 5 responses.
Right. Well, and that if someone asked me a question I didn't know, my father always said, say that you will do your best to find out for them. I've called you at times when people have asked me a question that's
Sure.
way out of my, bandwidth, lane, wheelhouse, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
And I've called you, and you've been very gracious with your information and sharing that with me. And, and so I don't have all the answers, but I can watch you and tell you if your swim technique is good, where it needs work.
Oh, sure.
I can, my son, for example, when he does push-ups, I'm like, you got to touch my knuckles. Your chest has to touch my knuckles. I can, in a lot of ways, I can help, and I can be harsh and I can be intense because I try to be truthful. So I think that if you are taking the initiative properly and working really, really hard, and like you said, patience, expediting this process is not always, you're going to get into a situation where I don't know if you get in the delayed entry program, I think you can get to a point where if you fail and you fail, you're still going to go into the Navy, but you're not going to go in as a SEAL. And
Yes, that can happen.
You're going to get yourself into a situation where you could be potentially unhappy. So if the desired outcome is to be a SEAL, SWIC, EOD, if you want to do that, then that, I look at it as that bubble that is off on the horizon. Well, if you look at that point on the horizon too strongly, you're going to bump into every tree and fall into every hole on the way there.
Yeah.
You have to, like you said, you have to take care of the certain things that are, in your way and address them with a very, solid information and hard work and effort base to get to that desired outcome on the horizon.
Absolutely. And I'll end this podcast with this. And the PST, actually medical, qualifying medically, and then physically getting tested is really step one of this selection process, right? You have started a selection program. And, I look at it this way. If someone shows up to my workout, gets his butt kicked, and keeps coming back and gets better and better and better, I like to see that, right? If I have another person who shows up, gets his butt kicked, and I never see him again, I like that too. That is part of the selection program, right? Maybe that's not for you. There's nothing wrong with that. You're just going to find out earlier than most people. If you can't pass this PST, you don't get a chance to go to BUDS and then find out that maybe this isn't for you, like the other 75% of your BUDS class.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't want to end the podcast with that, but there's a level too that there's guys that they're so good. They need you to see you to almost get that affirmation from you. There was that guy from Bucks County, Pennsylvania, who contacted me. I said, "You're closer to Stu. Go see him." Yeah. He worked out with you once. He was a water polo kid. I think you posted him swimming. His combat swimmer stroke was great. 2 weeks later, I think he had his contract.
Yeah.
He's sick right now. I think what he needed to hear was like, "You're good." Like,
that's true. Yep.
I think
absolutely.
And I'm fine. There's people who come and they might be like, okay, you're old and I'm in way better shape than you. And I guess I just needed to needed to see that I'm meeting the standard from someone who knows people or, has seen other guys go through the pipeline or whatever. So that's also, just like you said, that's great. You meet up one time, you go off, you do your own workouts to get yoked. Great. I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah.
And, I'm also, if you have information for me, I really want to do the best to be a sponge and learn everything I can, because it's not for me. It's to help those guys and girls that are coming through.
And things change too. I mean, you got to stay on top of a lot of these things. I mean, right now the Navy is going to take out sit-ups and they're going to turn it to plank pose. You need to know that, right? You probably won't be tested at sit-ups at boot camp. You're going to be tested in the plank pose, right? Now, that doesn't mean that Spec War and all the special ops sides are changing theirs to plank. Right now, that's not on the table. They're still doing sit-ups, so you have to do both, right? So, which is good for you anyway. Anytime you do a sit-up, you should be following up with a plank pose anyway, just to balance out that the core musculature. So
sure, yeah, and just be ready for variables.
Yep. And learn. Keep learning. I'm still learning. I have to stay on top of this as well, just like you guys do. And every now and then a student will come in and say, yeah, we're not doing it that way anymore. We had to do it this way. I'm like, oh, that's a new variable. Never heard of that one.
Yeah.
It happens. So
yeah. And again, I think that addressing I hate to be frustrated for these guys. These four guys.
I am frustrated for them. I'm, it's you're exactly right. It's hard to watch. It's hard to watch somebody who says, "Hey, I want to be a SEAL," jumps in that pool for the first time, already under the gun with, the clock and, officially delayed entry program, and
because that one kid who finished after 2 laps, he might have got out of the pool. The lifeguards moved. People were coming and talking to me. My buddy from Brazil is sitting next to me. This guy Nelson. He's like, "Well, Patrick, what are these guys doing?" And I'm like, I have there's nothing. I kind of wanted to go in the locker room, like, dude, you can do this. You're not done.
Yeah.
This can be the most valuable teacher, but I can't, I can't
Yeah.
go and talk to these kids and be the encourager. But I want to say that, that kid may never touch the water again. And that to me is that's what I kind of want to be for these guys and girls. Is like, no, like, don't worry about it. We can be all positive. We can do all that. We can, everything. And at the end of the day, if you never want to go for your official PST and become a teacher, or, any, like you said, any other job, that's great too.
Do your research, whatever job it is.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So anyway.
All right, man. Well, that's enough ranting, I think. Yeah. So anyway, hey, thanks, Patrick. If you guys are curious about getting in contact with us, you can get in contact with me at StewSmith.com. Click that free workouts link. You'll see our schedule. Also on that same link is Patrick Bonus out of Connecticut. If you're in that area, go see him. It's free training. Can't argue with the price. We just like to work out, to be honest with you, and having workout partners is fun for me. And I had 20 workout partners today, and we got after it. Everybody works a little harder. Iron sharpens iron, man. So, let's do this together and, join the club. So thank you, Patrick.
Thanks, Stu.
All right. We'll see you.